Hi, my name is Mackenzie, and fun fact about me, when I was told for the first time that the word gullible was written on the ceiling, I looked up. And again, when I was told if you say the word gullible slowly enough, it sounds like the word orange, I sat there and went, gullible. Gullible. I call it having a big, kind heart. Others would call it naivete or pure stupidity. But you know who should feel stupid when you are tricked? The one tricking you. Why are you doing that? I believed you, and I love you. And I fear I have been tricked and bamboozled multiple times in the last 6 months since this whole Blake versus Justin feud started. I believed Blake 100%, and then I believed Justin 100%, and now I find myself trusting nobody, just as it should be. In my last video, we established the baseline of the ongoing feud between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, both accusing the other of basically being the devil. Blake says that she was harassed on set by Justin and retaliated against after she had spoken up. And Justin says that he was extorted by Blake with these claims in order to gain full control of the movie It Ends With Us. To believe either of their stories at face value is to believe that the other is a mastermind supervillain and they are just an innocent little lamb. And people do love a villain. We feel united over a common enemy. But I don't think either of them are completely innocent. 2 things can be true at once, 5 things can be true at once. They are both just people at the end of the day. Very rich people, might I add. Let us not forget our class consciousness, as these multimillionaires will be just fine no matter what the outcome is. The real enemy has and always will be the 1%. So I will continue to criticize both of them as I please. Thank you very much. An episode just dropped from a podcast called Gents Talk featuring Justin Baldoni that we need to discuss immediately. And I learned a lot about Justin's values and opinions that I didn't know before, and I don't think I like all of them. The interviewer notes that this was filmed in November of 2024, so about a month before Blake's CRD complaint is filed and exposed by the New York Times. And every headline I am seeing about this podcast is expressing sympathy for Justin, saying, oh my gosh, he's crying and talking about anxiety, this poor widow muffin.
I haven't given myself time to recover or time to heal. I had a intense year. A lot of material success and a lot of emotional stress. It's very hard on me and my family. I'm having some anxiety, and when I check in with myself, I realize that I just haven't given myself the time to heal from this year that I needed.
First of all, I can't with the mouth noises, because why does it sound like the mic is inside of his throat? And the comments below the video are praising him, saying, Justin, we are all your dragons. We love you, in reference to Blake Lively, calling her famous friend and her husband her dragons. Very cringy. And in a way, this lawsuit was a blessing in disguise because it brings so much attention to Justin, which will in turn make his mission on healthy masculinity go viral. So I'm like, God damn, what did he say in this podcast that was so revolutionary and inspiring? And I'm sorry, did we watch the same podcast? Because I heard him repeat a lot of recycled Pinterest quotes and men's rights rhetoric from a crowd that I didn't think Justin belonged to. And if the media wasn't so far up his asshole, they would be using this against him in the way they are using every clip of Blake Lively ever anytime she breathes wrong. Because right now in the public eye, Blake is mean girl and Justin is good guy. So they have to cater to what the people want. But in doing so, they're ignoring some pretty glaring red flags that end up supporting Blake's narrative that he might be full of shit. Do you guys remember 2 seconds ago when Blake was criticized for being out of touch and insensitive to DV survivors? Which I agree, she was. But what if I told you that Justin might have some equally out of touch and wild takes when it comes to DV? Here he is talking about his secret reason for wanting to make this movie in the first place.
The reason under the reason, the secret reason, which I would never lead with, because this is a movie at the end of the day for women to see themselves. The real reason underneath it all was to affect change in men. And if you create a female event film, of course women are going to go with women, but there's going to be a lot of men that go with women. That's the other reason why I wanted to direct it and why I wanted to play this character. Because I wanted men to see themselves in each of the men.
Okay, so he wants this film to be relatable to both men and women. No problem there, but just to clarify, which men are you talking about?
I wanted men to see what happens when you do not resolve your trauma. I wanted men to see a guy like Ryle, who in his heart is a good man.
What now? Who's a good, who?
Be unable to control his insecurity, let his fears win and take over, and harm the person he loves the most, the one person who has helped him find himself. He hurts her because he never took the time to heal. I wanted men to see that they could lose everything. And I wanted to do it in a way where, in some ways, men felt empathy for Ryle. And if they could feel empathy for Ryle, they could see themselves.
Okay, Colleen Hoover. Well, now we know why he liked your book so much. Because she is heavily criticized for writing abusive men under a sympathetic lens. And he was like, yes, that is what we need more of in this world. Hey, has anyone ever tried seeing the good side of these pieces of shit? No, Justin. Certainly, no woman has ever tried that. It's definitely not one of the reasons that women stay in these abusive relationships, because they also see the good in him. No one has ever thought of that. You're a fucking genius. The entire time that Justin was doing these interviews, leading the crusade on spreading DV awareness, he secretly wants people to be aware that abusive men also have feelings. And we need to stop making them the villain in movies because they're good people just making bad choices. They probably had a bad childhood, so maybe you should think about that before you demonize them.
The other way to make this movie, which I was really trying to avoid, is to demonize Ryle and to make him the villain. But I knew that I'd lose the men, and for the same reason I don't say toxic masculinity, I didn't want to make a movie like that, because we have enough of that. We have enough man-hating movies that exist in the world. But this is a movie about trauma and ending generational cycles.
Quick question, you kind of glazed on past that one. What man-hating movies are you talking about? Please, Justin, share with the class. You wouldn't happen to be talking about the Barbie movie, would you? A movie that far-right commentators consistently called a man-hating movie because they completely missed the point? I have a pen out and I'm ready to write your list down. Say it with your chest, you feminist king, you. Not to not all men, you, but that's such a weird thing to say, that all men would be offended if you made the abusive character in this movie even more unlikable. You know who that's going to offend? Abusive men. That's the point. The men you are catering to are the men that act like that. Normal, emotionally regulated men are not going to feel personally attacked because they don't behave that way. But he's saying out loud that he wants this movie to be more palatable to violent men because he thinks the problem is we're too mean to them. We demonize them too much. I don't think we demonize them enough. Terrible men have been making excuses for their behavior since the beginning of time. This is nothing new, but from what I'm hearing, he thinks that he can lure abusive men into the movie theater by humanizing Ryle more, and then if they watch the movie, they'll stop being abusive. No, I'm not inferring that. He says that that actually happened.
But deep down, there was a hope that there'd be a man in the audience who would recognize his behavior, go and get help, and never harm. And I've had men reach out to me like that, who have thanked me for the movie. And we've stopped those men from harming because they saw what could happen to them.
One moment. Here, it's a cap. There is no chance that any man who had been abusing their partner watched It Ends With Us and thought, oh my gosh, I was doing a bad thing? I thought she liked it when I did those things. Decades of therapy avoided. I believe him when he says that men reached out to him and most likely lied to him and he ate it right up because he might be a covert narcissist. And obviously, if that did happen, that would be a good thing. But that didn't happen because abusers do not change their stripes, which is something he admits to when he later talks about the data.
The majority of men that abuse come from abuse. That's the data. That's what the research says. Hurt people hurt people.
Yep.
And the majority of men who abuse don't change. They can't change.
Men can't change. And they don't want to change. Unless they go watch It Ends With Us, streaming in theaters now. He's just going by the data. It's the data. But since podcasters are allergic to giving sources for their data, I looked it up for him. First, he says that the majority of men who abuse come from abuse. Doing a quick 5 minutes of research shows that that is not true, and in fact, the opposite is true. If you were abused as a child, you are more likely to be abused as an adult. However, the Childhood Domestic Violence Association reports that children who witnessed domestic violence in their homes were 3 times more likely to commit domestic violence as adults. The key word there being witnessed, not necessarily subject to. So if the father abuses the mother in the home, the boy child is more likely to become an abuser and the girl child is more likely to be abused because that was normalized for them. And witnessing abuse is still trauma by definition, but it is a common misconception that victims of abuse are more likely to be perpetrators of abuse later on. That's just not how that works. PTSD is not a precursor to causing trauma to others. If that were the case, then we'd see more female abusers since they are the primary victims of abuse, then they're supposed to be more likely to perpetrate it, right? But 95% of perpetrators of DV are men, and those men are not all victims of abuse themselves. That's not the data, Justin.
The data also says that the only way for a man generally to stop abusing or to stop hurting a woman is for that woman to leave. And then in the next relationship, he can break the cycle.
Yeah, I think he pulled that one straight out of his arse because I cannot find that statistic anywhere. And look, I know you're busy, Justin, but if you could have your people send my people a little linky link to my email down below, that would be fab. But I just find it baffling that after years of research for this movie and this role, that he is blatantly spreading misinformation. What I can find, though, is that a victim's life is in more danger when they attempt to leave, and it takes up to 7 times on average to do so. The movie It Ends With Us doesn't show this at all, shocker, probably because it was following the plot of the book, which we know also doesn't talk about the realities of DV. Blake's character breaks up with him in one fell swoop, and in the same tone that one would order takeout. And it is incredibly awkward. Here, let me act it out for you. Would you like to hold our newborn baby, man who is abusive to women? I would love that. Thank you. Okay, so now that you're holding her, I'm going to say something that may upset you. That sounds like a great idea. I'm breaking up with you. Yeah, yeah, it's just not working out. Look at your baby. If someone was hurting her, would you like that? No. I wouldn't. Right, because our girl baby is a female. Females are also daughters, which is information that you were learning for the very first time. Oh my god. Women are people? My mind is blown. You've cured me. You're welcome. Anyways, that was a lot easier than I thought. Bye, Ryle. Bye. My bad for all that stuff before. You're not calling the cops, right? The who? Oh. No, that would be too realistic. So we're gonna leave that part out. Awesome. I'm gonna go find my next victim. The reality is that victims escaping their volatile relationships usually don't entail a singular friendly conversation, leaving in the middle of the night, secretly calling 911 but pretending you're ordering a pizza. Any way to do it so that the perp doesn't know you're doing it, that's the norm. But we wouldn't want to hurt men's feelings by talking about that. I hate that he said with 0 sources that the only way a man can change is if the woman leaves him, which is just not true. That's the whole thing, is that women are prevented from leaving either by being threatened or being financially controlled, or they have kids together, or they simply have no place to go. And if a woman does end up getting away for good, the dude's just gonna find his next victim. They don't magically stop because a woman puts their foot down. That actually tends to make them really angry. And he even acknowledges that this is not a woman's problem, it's a man's problem.
I talk a lot about reframing the question from why did she stay to why did he hurt her?
Yep.
And that means that violence against women, as we know, is not a woman's issue, it's a man's issue.
I just feel like he is taking a systemic issue and making it an individual problem. I thought his answer to why do men harm was the patriarchy, toxic masculinity, but come to find out, Justin doesn't believe that toxic masculinity exists.
Men are hard to reach because we're hard to reach. And I want to eliminate as many barriers so that whether it's in language, whether it's, why I don't ever say the word toxic when I refer to masculinity.
Why is that?
Because I don't believe masculinity is toxic. And I think it's become politicized. I think toxic masculinity has been a term and a phrase that's been weaponized and then used against men to make men feel less than. And I've found that even if there are aspects of masculinity that are carried to excess that end up being harmful to both men and the women and the people in their lives.
Man, I wish someone had invented a word for that. What he said was way more words than just saying toxic. Also, the irony of this episode title having the words healthy masculinity in it. Is that because there's a version of unhealthy masculinity? Would saying that make you feel better? He says that it's become too politicized, but he's completely involved in a politicized space. He can't avoid that. I don't know what his aversion to politics are when he is literally speaking on social and political issues. It's very annoying to me. Sorry, back to you, Justin.
Nothing good ever comes from pointing the finger at somebody. Like if we were in a conversation and we didn't know each other and I was coming at you like this, your instinct would be to retreat.
Yep.
Or it would be to puff up and come back.
Yep.
And
Both of which don't work.
don't believe that either one of those things foster unity. And I think what we need more of is compassion, understanding, and empathy. And I also believe it's important to, regardless of whether there is an oppressor or an oppressed, to acknowledge hurt where it exists and in whom it exists. And I think men are hurting overall.
This is the craziest thing he has ever said. When we have an oppressor, we need to acknowledge the hurt. No the fuck we don't? How about you take your boot off of my neck and then maybe we can talk about why you put it there in the first place. But for now, your feelings are not my problem. You standing on top of me is my problem. Sorry if it hurts your feelings if I'm asking you to stop oppressing me. But I'm not asking nicely and I don't need to. Have we ever thought of just using the word please? I mean, he's a person too. This looks like a get your papes. His conclusion that to solve violence against women, women just need to humanize men more and not the other way around is bonkers. I cannot be alone in watching this interview and being gobsmacked at the words coming out of his mouth. Because Justin was not talking like this before in his press interviews. He literally said in this podcast, I don't usually lead with this and I don't talk about this because he knows he has a controversial take that he looks like he got fresh off of a Reddit incel thread. You cannot tell me this man would not use the hashtag #NotAllMen if it wouldn't get him canceled. If he had said all of this stuff before when Blake was getting shit, people wouldn't have liked him either, and she self-sabotaged by not letting him do press with her. But now it's too late. Justin Baldoni has solidified his spot in the media as a victim of Blake's, but I think the truth is they might both be incredibly out of touch, egotistical assholes. His idea is that we just need to be nicer to shitty men and ask them who hurt you and coddle them is not a new idea. It is an excuse and it's not even a real one. I am not an expert, but I can think of a few reasons that men harm. Here's some just off the top of my head. Men harm women because they hate women. They don't see women as people. They enjoy it and they can get away with it. They do it because they can and because of rhetoric like this. this. The reason I hurt you is because I'm hurting. So I'm not actually a bad person. You can say that about literally anybody. Every evil person in the world has done some good in their life. Mustache Man was an animal-loving vegetarian. Ted Bundy was an upstanding member of his Mormon church, and they sent him cards in prison. And Elon Musk is, well, we're still waiting. Maybe his evil level is 100%. But to say that people who commit atrocities against humanity have good hearts is beyond unhelpful and besides the point. I don't care if abusers volunteer at the soup kitchen on the weekends. But Justin doesn't want men to feel shamed for what they do for some reason. And it finally hit me after both watching this interview and his TED Talk that went viral 7 years ago that Justin has not been pandering to women this entire time by being a performative ally. His goal since day one in his career of activism has been to pander to men. Here are some clips of his speech, Why I'm Done Trying to Be Man Enough.
As a boy, all I wanted was to be accepted and liked by the other boys. But that acceptance meant I had to acquire this almost disgusted view of the feminine. And since we were told that feminine is the opposite of masculine, I either had to reject embodying any of these qualities or face rejection myself. I built a really wonderful fan base, really sweet and engaged. And so I decided to use my social platform as kind of this Trojan horse, wherein I could create a daily practice of authenticity and vulnerability. The response has been incredible. It's been affirming, it's been heartwarming. I get tons of love and press and positive messages daily. But it's all from a certain demographic. Women. This is real. Why are only women following me? Where are the men? About a year ago, I posted this photo. Now, afterwards, I was scrolling through some of the comments, and I noticed that one of my female fans had tagged her boyfriend in the picture. And her boyfriend responded by saying, "Please stop tagging me in gay shit." Thanks. As if being gay makes you less of a man, right? So I wanted to figure out how I could reach more men, but of course, none of them were following me. So I tried an experiment. I started posting more stereotypically masculine things. Like my challenging workouts, my meal plans, my journey to heal my body after an injury. And guess what happened? Men started to write me. And then, out of the blue, for the first time in my entire career, a male fitness magazine called me. And they said they wanted to honor me as one of their game changers. Is that really game-changing? Or is it just conforming? And see, that's the problem. It's totally cool for men to follow me when I talk about guy stuff. Or if I promote gender equality, then only the women show up. Where are the men? So men. Men.
Men, please like me, men. To his own admission, his motivation for starting this journey was because too many women and not enough men were following him on social media. What in the Matt Rife? Matt self-sabotaged his comedy career because he complained that not enough men were showing up at his shows. And instead of being okay with having a mostly female audience, because there's nothing wrong with that, he started making derogatory jokes about women so that more men would like him, and he got canceled for that. Well, he is still a professional stand-up comedian with a Netflix show, but it was a rug pull to his core audience. But Justin says that he is well-intentioned by trying to reach men because he wants to challenge their ideas of masculinity and make them more like him. But admitting his initial insecurity of having a female audience and wanting to be liked and accepted by other men is the crux of the patriarchy, which he doesn't really talk about in his TED Talk. He says, "I'm not gonna give you guys a history lesson. We all know how we got here."
Now, I'm not here to give a history lesson. We likely all know how we got here, okay?
Do you know how we got here, Justin? I don't know that you do. Be a little more specific. A true ally or male feminist wouldn't care about hurting men's feelings or being admired while talking about the harm that men cause women. He constantly wants to try and avoid politics while inserting himself directly into political conversations. Masculinity is just a social construct, but he tiptoes around that, and people are applauding him like he just cured cancer. What I'm saying is, the bar is in hell. A man says, you know, I think men should be allowed to cry. And everyone's like, oh my God, he said it. But that is surface level, and it is so much deeper than that. And his speech and his interview can be repurposed for literally any men's rights conference.
Where are you? Ah, you're ridiculous, and men's rights is nothing.
Men already have rights, and the only ones who are going to be upset about the status quo changing are the ones who want to keep it that way. The actual good guys that are not causing harm and are actively trying to prevent it are not the ones that will be offended. Anyways, I stand by everything I said in my previous video about Blake and Justin. I said that I was open to seeing more from Blake, who is still working on amending her complaint, and I still have yet to go through Justin's defense, which I do plan on doing because this whole thing is distracting me from, you know, the horrors. I feel like last time I got a couple people that were disappointed that I didn't defend Blake more, and I definitely know for this video I'm gonna have people disappointed that I'm going in on Justin, and you can't please everybody. And at the end of the day, none of this really affects us personally, but it opens up a larger conversation about serious issues. All thoughts and opinions are welcome here. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm still figuring out my setup. I've moved it to this wall, which I am liking a little more. Say goodbye to Trixie and Rexy. Oh no, you can only see Rexy. There they are. Say bye, Trixie and Rexy. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.